Hey guys, this is Jennifer from the Shooter's Mindset, and we are live with episode 395. We have our co-hosts here with us. We've got Corey. How's it going?
Awesome. Feeling good. Dry again.
Dry again. Yeah, you got a little waterlogged this weekend, didn't you?
I didn't, but some people did.
It looked a little wet and muddy from what I could see.
That was the muddiest it's ever been, and Jared knows what that means.
Yeah, that range gets really muddy. Especially that row of bays gets really nasty.
And our other co-host, Greg, how's it going?
Good.
All right. And then this week, our guest of the hour, which is who everybody really wants to hear, not our mouths, is Jared Halbert he's the owner and the previous champ at the Tactical Games. How's it going, Jared?
Pretty good.
So for anybody that's unfamiliar, we'll go ahead and jump in. And can you tell us a little bit about what the Tactical Games are?
Sure. So like to boil it down, pretty simple. It combines different types of shooting. So in a typical weekend, there'll be 6 stages and then 2 floaters. One of the floaters will be a physical floater, something physically that you have to do. The other one will be what's very similar to like a USPSA classifier. And then the other 6 stages are comprised of like fitness and firearms in different kinds of ways. One is typically a run that's anywhere between 3 and 6 miles. Typically in the regional events, we stay around 3 miles max. For the elite folks, and then the other divisions will typically run half that, so about 1.5 miles to 2 miles. Then there'll be one that's a longer run, one that involves running during shooting. So you may run 300-400 yards, shoot, run 300-400 yards, shoot. And there will be 2 heavier stages where strength is the priority and shooting as well. And then there's 2 that we kind of call like work capacity. So it's not heavy, not lightweight, but you have to move it a lot over a short period of time, and then the shooting as well. And through the 6 stages, the round counts are typically between 250 to 300 for both your pistol and your rifle. So there is a considerable amount of shooting over 6 stages. I think a typical 3-gun match, it's been a while, but I think a typical 3-gun match will have 175 to 200 rifle, and about similar for pistol. So we are shooting is definitely king for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty respectable round counts for 6 stages. That's awesome.
Right, yeah. And it's for anybody that's familiar with fitness, like 10 seconds in fitness is an eternity, and each miss is worth 10 seconds. So when we're designing the stages, a very good design stage, you'll have, if it's 6 minutes, if it's 6 minutes of shooting, that's 360 seconds of, or if the total time from start to finish is average is 6 minutes, that's 360 seconds. But there's a possibility of up to like 800 seconds in penalties and misses. So
nice.
if you can figure it out, like the guys that are doing very well are definitely, you can show up and have an extremely high level of fitness and get last place. You can show up and be very good at shooting and finish in the top 5 based on your shooting, and you may not physically finish one of the events, but you can still shoot your way into definitely the top 10. You may miss an entire round, but that guy that finished in half the amount of time that you did may have missed 3/4 of his shots. And if you sit there and you make all of your shots or 90% of your shots, you'll finish ahead of them for sure.
So you really do have to be able to shoot in Tactical Games. It's not just a little prop that you have for looks for carrying a gun.
So last year when I beat Hepner at the championship. Hepner, for people that aren't familiar with CrossFit, CrossFit crowns the fittest person in the world. right? So that's over a lot of different kinds of fitness. That's running, lifting, all kinds of stuff. And I think in the last 6 years, there's 1 year he's got long forearms, so he wasn't able to meet a handstand push-up standard for one, which y'all may or may not know what that is. But the he had gone to I think 6 CrossFit games and finished in the top 10 of all of those. So he is one
That's
of
crazy.
in the last decade, he is one of the fittest men that walks the planet, right?
Yeah.
And I was able to beat him. And I am, if you take it down to like let's use USPSA for example, and you have like a local monthly match, right? CrossFit has a open every year, and you qualify through like your local monthly match type thing. Then you go from that local monthly match to like an area match, and then the national championship, right?
Right.
And fitness wise in CrossFit, I'm taller, I have long arms. Like I'm not built great for CrossFit. I'm also just not fit enough to make it, but I don't make it out of that local monthly match in the CrossFit sphere, right? So if you can kind of judge somebody who's finishing the top 10 in the entire world versus somebody who can't get out of a local match, that you can kind of gauge what the importance of shooting is in the sport. It is definitely a shooting heavy sport. Now, Hepner's also an incredible athlete. He has built a scenario for himself where he can spend a lot of time and resources on shooting, and that's all he's been doing for a year and a half, which is why he crushed everybody this year.
Nice.
He's an exceptional shooter. I tore my hamstring about 5 minutes into the first event. I finished out the weekend, and there was some talk afterwards of like, oh, well, if Jared was healthy, he would have beat him. I would not have. I was in the lane right next to him. I know exactly how fast I can go. I know exactly how many hits I would have gotten, and the different things. And the math didn't add up. There's no way the math adds up to where I could have beat him. He's way too fit, and he shoots way too good now. So, but anyway, that's a long story of it. But that's basically what it is, and what it involves. And I guess that's a long answer for what it is.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah,
The mile and a half and stuff like that really is something that anyone can do, right?
Oh yeah.
Like,
yeah.
even if you're walking it, you can still complete it. It's
Yes.
not like you're going to fall out of the events or anything.
In the way that the heavy stage, which everybody likes to focus, so like at the championship there was a 300-pound bag, right?
Okay.
I can pick up a 300-pound bag. Most of the people in the world cannot pick up a 300-pound bag.
That's pretty heavy for dead weight.
A 300-pound bag is not going to be seen again until next year's national championship, right? So like you can pretty much put it in the bank that 250 is going to be the heaviest bag. Like we bring it out in the partner competitions for the elite groups, because there's the option to lift it as a partner. So like you and your partner can lift it together, or you can save some time and one person can do it while the other person's shooting, right? So there's a benefit there. But everybody likes to focus on, oh, I can't do that, because they see the heaviest thing that the elite people are doing and then immediately think that they have to do that. And that's not the case. The heaviest thing that an elite athlete is going to see during a regional is going to be a 250-pound bag. And the way that we design the stages is that there might be 4 or 5 rounds of fitness on that stage. So you have, and it's a progressively loaded, right? So the first round, you may be moving a 100-pound bag. The second round, you may be moving a 150-pound bag. The third round, you may go back and do like more of the 150-pound bag. Then you go to 200, and then the last round is the 250-pound. It would be the heaviest portion. So you still get to shoot 80% of the stage. And more often than not, it's somebody who didn't get to participate in the last round because they couldn't get that heaviest bag over ends up winning the stage. Because of, I mean, Corey, you're familiar, but like when you do a pretty maximal lift, it fries your CNS for a second and you start getting like you shake real hard.
Yeah.
So after you've done the heaviest of the heavy lifts, you get back to the firing line, and it is just you don't have a prayer, especially with a
Yeah.
pistol. You're not going to make your hits.
Yeah. It's a show.
Yeah. So typically, like Sal Hernandez is a perfect example. Historically, he doesn't make it past the heaviest round, and you could probably go back and count the amount of times that he has won the heavy stages and not even completed the entire event, just by shooting accurately. So and then, like at the championship, we ran almost 9 miles with 4.5 miles out with a ruck. We dropped off the ruck, and then you ran 4.5 miles back without it. People will hear that. It's like, I can't run 9 miles, but at a regional, it's only maybe 3 miles. And it's for everybody but the elites, it'll be about 1.5 miles. And at the championship, it was 4 miles for everybody that wasn't in the elite group. So
Okay.
it's
That's pretty reasonable.
yeah, it's not, and like you said, you can always walk. Like
Yeah.
I walk a lot. I'm a terrible runner. And the last 2 years, we had a 12-mile ruck in 2021. I walked probably 9 miles of it. I didn't care. I had a smile on my face the whole time. I did not care. So
I mean, rucking is fine. Running is not.
yeah.
It sounds like people that say, oh, I can't go shoot a PRS match because my dope past 900 yards isn't good. I'm like, that's 2 targets, dude. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
There's 98 more for you in a 1 day to go for. You'll be fine. Come on.
Yeah.
So,
And then of the people that engage 1,000-yard, like, how many are actually going to hit it, right? So you're really limiting yourself because you're looking at the maximal thing that's going to be happening when. And the other thing about it is, a lot of people, especially people from the competitive shooting sphere, is like, if I can't compete in the elite, I'm not going to compete. And that's a terrible attitude. Like,
yeah,
there's the tactical division, there's the intermediate division, and those are still like very respectable things to do. And there's also no attitude. Like, when you're just walking around at the event, you would never know who is in what division. Nobody knows, nobody cares, and everybody's just having a good time. So
I'm assuming the elites are a small part of the division. I'm assuming, like,
it is
regionally and locally, you have way more in your tactical divisions, right?
Yes. Yeah. So tactical and intermediate make up about 140 of the 180 competitors.
Okay.
So there's typically only about 20 men and 20 women in the elite group.
Yeah.
So what are these different groups? Is it, I guess, the amount of physical in the match, or in the competition?
Yeah. So it's split up. So what I would say is, an elite, like, is kind of a pretentious word for it, but the reason why we use that word is in the obstacle course racing and some other physical sports, it's elite, intermediate, not like they use those designations. So that's why when Tim started it, that's why he used those designations for the different divisions. But it is separated by, so the tactical division is typically doing about 80%, 70 to 80% of the weight that the elite division is doing. And then they'll typically run about half as far. And the reason why it's half is we usually set up a loop, and the elite people will run that loop twice, and everybody else will run that loop once. And then if the elites only run it once, typically they'll have a ruck with them that's like 60 or 70 pounds. So, and then
that's not bad at all.
Won't have that ruck. So
yeah. And 70% of the weight, that's a lot of people that can do more there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then the intermediate division, which is still very respectable to do, it's super fun. Like, and I think a lot of people look past the fact that this is for fun. Like, it's all everybody's supposed to have fun. And if you sign up for a division that you're not like physically equipped for, it's not going to be fun, and so the intermediate is about 50% of the elite groups. And it's because in CrossFit, they have this thing, it's like you program for the best and you scale for the rest, right?
Okay.
And just because, you use the word best, you could easily substitute, it's a quick word to describe what it is, but you could also say the people that have time to work out twice a day, 5 days a week. That's some people don't have the time to do that. And
Yeah.
if you don't have the time to do that, there's other divisions that like fit your lifestyle to where you can still come and compete and have a really good time. So beyond that, we do have the 40 plus for women's and men's, and then we have the 50 plus for men. We don't have enough women participating yet to have the 50 plus. It's really kind of a stretch. We typically have about 30 women competing, 35 women competing, and we try to have as many divisions open to them as possible, without having like 2 people in each division. So most of them will compete in the tactical division, and then we'll have 7 to 10 in the elite, about 15 in tactical, a couple in intermediate, and we just started the 40 plus division recently. So
I mean, 35 women though. Like Jen, when was the last time you saw 35 ladies at a PRS match? Right, that's pretty high.
Oh man, so when I took over, when I bought the tactical games, it was January 1 of 2021, and Corey, Tess Sal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she competed at the first one that I competed at, like before I owned it. And anyway, we had a blast, and she's kind of who I lean on for advice there. And we did a series of free classes throughout the country. And our retention rate of those women that came to those free classes was like almost 100%. So the ones that came to those classes showed up and started competing. Then they started bringing their husbands. Then they started bringing their friends. And then the women's divisions really blew up after that. And we had, we'll average between like 20 and 40 women at every match now. So
that's crazy.
Going to a 3-gun match where there might be like 3 or 4, and then go into a tactical games where there's like 30 is a mind trip for sure. So
those retention numbers are amazing too, because USPSA's turnover is like 50%.
Yeah, and the thing about it is a lot of the women are coming from the fitness space, and people that are coming. So CrossFit is kind of like a alternate sport type thing, and they have disposable income, disposable time, and they're not against, like, the whole thing around CrossFit is always doing new things, changing things, adapting, stuff like that. And if they come to a shooting sport, and if anybody comes to a shooting sport and they suck at it, they're probably not going to come back. Like they didn't have that great of a time. Yeah. But if they're coming from the fitness space already, they can leave with half of a win no matter what, right? Like they can always leave with the, man, I'm not that good at shooting, but the fitness part was really fun and I had a really good time doing that. And I met all these other people that were cool while I was there. So they'll be like, I just need to work on shooting and get better at that, and I can be good at this. So I think that's where a lot of the retention comes from.
So
that's a super cool way to look at it.
Prentice Wink asked a question that I also have in the comments. Is there an ATV division?
ATV? No. At the Tactical Games Sniper Challenge, we do. We have a division called. We have a division where you can, the recce division, where you can take your 3-gun rifle with a 1 to 10, keep it exactly like it's set up, and go shoot the stages. And you don't have to do any of the fitness. And then you can also shoot the stages with a gas gun or a bolt gun, and you do not have to shoot, and you do not have to do any of the fitness. So those are definitely available. For really, we added the recce division for 3-gun folks to be able to show up, and it's 15 long range stages in 2 days, which, I mean, Corey can tell you, you go to a 3-gun match and there's typically 2 or 3 long range stages. So you get like 5 match worths of long range 3-gun shooting in 2 days. So it's a really good way to show up and practice. And in a match setting, get a lot of stages shot. We do shoot out to like 800 yards. But you're also shooting against everybody that the max magnification is 10 power and it has to be a 223.
Right.
So, I mean, you're shooting against people with the exact same equipment that you have. So you're not at a disadvantage.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So what would be a good, like, if somebody's sitting at home listening to us and they're like, well, they say it's easy, but like, how fit does somebody have to be in order to come and compete in, say, the tactical division?
Tactical division. So it's funny. We were actually talking about, because we're coming out with a series of posts to describe exactly who should be in what division, right? For the intermediate division, if you're a able-bodied male or female with no like physical impairments, you can show up and compete and have a good time. There's always options around things, right? So if there's going to be something that is either possibly dangerous if you're not fit enough to do it, there's an opt out where you can do burpees or something instead. So like it used to be
burpees.
What would you want to do less than burpees? I
some
hate
people,
burpees.
I love burpees. I don't
for
know
some
why.
people it's rope climbs. We don't do rope climbs anymore because we had a lot of people falling off the rope and getting hurt, so we had to stop doing that. But for the tactical division, I would say if you are working out, and it does not have to be CrossFit, like the best athletes that we have that are most equipped is they call themselves like hybrid athletes, and they really come from like the OCR space. So they have really good VO2 max, which, to boil that term down, they can breathe really well, like they don't get out of breath very easy. So they have a high VO2 max and they're relatively strong. And that's relatively strong means like you can go to Gold's Gym and you lift weights twice a week, and then you can run a couple of miles. Like you would have fun in the tactical division if you can do those things. The heaviest bag that you're going to encounter is about 150 pounds. So if you can pick up 150-pound sandbag and move it, that's the last round of the heaviest stage that you're going to get to. So if you can do that, you're going to be able to breeze through just about everything else. And I say breeze through. It's still going to be hard as hell, but that's what you're there for, right? It's just, you're going to be breathing heavy. You're going to be, laying on the ground when it's done, but you're going to be able to show up and have a good time. For the age groups, you really have to be somebody that has put a lot of effort into fitness. Doesn't have to be CrossFit, but like some kind of HIIT style workouts where it's like high intensity intervals for 2 or 3 minutes with a minute break, 2 or 3 minutes with a minute break, or just traditional CrossFit. And that's the catch all. My first time, and I don't know what to expect, is the intermediate division. If you are already relatively fit, then you can go into the age groups or tactical. And I would not suggest coming in unless you are a very, very high level athlete. I would not suggest coming in and doing elite for your first go around, for sure. So.
Wow. So you went through the levels of competition. What are battles versus skirmishes?
So we actually changed the name. We don't call them battles anymore. That's to be completely candid, I thought it was pretty hokey when I was competing that they were called battles, right? And it got some kickback from people in the military community, and I understood it as well. Like I didn't own it when they made these names, but we call them stages. But a stage is a stage at like a regional, same as like a stage at USPSA. They're all stages now. I mean, we're shooting and working out. It's not a battle. Like I love Tim to death. He's a guy that used to own it, and he and I are friends. We talk a lot. I respect him a lot. He had a really long military career in the special forces and stuff, and he used to say this competition's as close as you can get to war without getting shot at or something. I always thought that was kind of like, you shouldn't be saying that, But that's why, we gently started moving away from some of those names that they were calling stuff. And that's one, like, we don't call them battles anymore, they're stages. We just ended the skirmish program. So the skirmish program could have been related to like a 3-gun nation read or monthly match, or like a USPSA monthly match, where somebody was running it at their local range. You show up and you do it 3 stages and leave. We changed that. We noticed that the people that were coming into the skirmishes were coming in a little unprepared. So people that come from the shooting space always show up to the Tactical Games event 100% prepared. They know what a shooting match is. They have all the stuff that they need to do to compete. They may get crushed by I wouldn't say crushed. They may have a more difficult time with the fitness. But the shooting wise, they're squared away. People that are coming from the fitness portion, they think the fitness part is like just a minor inconvenience in between the shooting that's impossible, right? So there's 2 different ways of looking at it. But we noticed that the people coming from the fitness industry had gone to a couple skirmishes. They came in, they weren't necessarily prepared for a shooting match. So we changed that to Tactical Games training days, is what we call it. So it's like a play off the training day, the movie. It's funny.
Okay.
But anyway, what it is it's about 4 hours, and the first 2.5 hours you're running through drills. So like, Corey can attest, and y'all can probably attest, that if you go and you look at like what the top shooters are doing during a day that they're training, they're not setting up a full USPSA stage and just running a full USPSA stage every time.
God, no.
They're
No
going to
way.
practice transitions on like 2 or 3 targets, maybe like put a couple sticks out and work on footwork, stuff like that. They're not setting up a full stage. So the first about 2.5 hours, the people that are leading it have competed before, and that's one of or not recommendations. That's one of the requirements of people that are running the training days, that they've competed several times at a certain level before we let them start running one. And they take you through drills. Everybody in the nation on this, every month they're doing the same drills. So Jake works for the Tactical Games. He writes all the drills out, puts time limit, like this is how long, this is par times that you need for this drill, stuff like that. Works them through the drills, and then at the end of the day, they set up a stage and they'll run through like an abbreviated 2 or 3 minute stage, to where like basically you do some fitness, you go down, you shoot, you do some fitness, go down and shoot, and then that way you can assess like, oh, I had no idea it was going to be like this. This is what I'm going to change. And then the fitness isn't too hard. It's just kind of like a placeholder. So that way you can run the same thing over and over again and start getting practice at, transitioning from rifle to pistol, shooting through ports, and getting used to the loading procedures, the safety procedures, all that stuff. So that way you're very well prepared when you come to your first event.
That's a huge value to provide as an organization, like just the training in general. That's not something that you get in like USPSA or 3-gun from the top down, where you're essentially providing them training on how to better themselves, and it pays off for you. You guys come in, you see the sport grow and everything, but it's very rare to get that kind of information from like an organization, like a shooting sport.
Yeah. So if you can imagine, I guess, like to equate it over to USPSA, what it would be like is USPSA as an organization releasing, having a structured practice that each local match is going to put on once a month, and new people can come and they're going to be put through that structured practice through with experienced competitors. And then at the end of that day, they get a chance to run like a small USPSA stage. The big thing that a lot of people look over is like make ready, right? Like, you don't know what that means. And then safety procedures, like we have very strict safety procedures. At the end of each firing sequence, you have to show clear, holster your gun, hold your hands up, say clear. The judge has to say clear, and then you can turn around and keep working out. You can imagine, like having a pistol and a holster and you're working out, it better be clear. We even do the, you have to point your pistol at the target, pull the trigger and drop the hammer to mechanically make sure it's clear, the whole deal. And then we don't do fitness with the rifles anymore. There's basically a box that they're set down in, and
Okay.
the rifle stays at the firing line the entire time. Just when you're working out, there's no way to have muzzle discipline at all. So we keep those at the firing line. But yeah, it's a huge value add. The people that come through the training days and show up to events, you would never know that it's their first time to come and compete. So
Okay. So pistols and rifles, if you were to say like gear you need for just your first match,
Mhm.
what's like the basic stuff you can show up with and compete?
So I'd say like if you're showing up with a Glock, you can get away with like 2 or 3 magazines. And the
Okay.
reason why I say 2 or 3 magazines is because 50% of the people out there have Glocks and you can borrow magazines, right? So you don't have to be so set on having 5, and we rarely will have 5. On our website, it says come with 5 magazines for each your rifle and pistol. But a Glock 19, a Glock 17, 34, like it's great. You're gonna have a great time. Bring 5 magazines with it. An AR-15, you can have LPVO, red dot, whatever you want to do is fine. You can only have 1 sight on your gun though. You can have
Okay.
backup irons. We don't require it. You can have them. That's fine. But like you can't have an LPVO and think TAC ops and 3 gun.
Yep.
That's what
Yep.
your rifle has to be. Then we don't allow muzzle brakes, and it's not because we don't want people shooting fast like most people think it is. It's because unlike other shooting sports, you're shooting next to 5 other people. And if you can imagine a prone line with everybody having muzzle brakes, everybody can see the target for their first shot, and then nobody can see anything that's going on anymore. And it's really just like waiting for the wind to blow so that you can start shooting at your target again. So that's the reason why we have the muzzle device rules that we have, is so that if you can imagine you showed up with a muzzle device that is not going to affect anybody around you, and then like somebody has like an SJC Titan next to you and it's just
Yeah.
like blowing dirt and all kinds of crap over you, like you're not going to have a fun weekend. It's not going to be fun.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why we have the rules. But just an AR-15, 5 magazines. We don't really have any restrictions on the guns other than like the muzzle device. You can do whatever you want. You can't couple magazines. You can't have a bipod. Just TAC ops. That's what it is. So we do limit it to 30 round magazines, just so we had some crazy gaming stuff going on for a while. So we just said like, listen, 30 round magazines, and they can't be coupled.
Cool.
That's 5 magazines for your rifle. A way to stow your magazines doesn't mean that you need to have a mag pouch for each one. You can keep them in your pockets. A lot of times it's more advantageous to like just keep magazines in your pockets. You can take them out and you can leave them on the firing line sometimes and just come back to them each time. That's
Cool.
fine too. So you don't necessarily need like a way to secure 10 magazines at a time, like 5 for each. Most of the time it's 2 or 3 each, and that's it. And then a plate carrier, women needs to be 12 pounds, men needs to be 15 pounds. And that's it. It's really gear wise, it's a 2-gun match with a plate carrier. That's what it is. So
cool. So how did you get into competition and then end up being the owner of Tactical Games?
So it was right after Corey and I shot that match you were talking about earlier. My kids were getting a little bit older. I didn't really want to keep traveling around shooting 3-gun. I had some sponsors, and I was about ready to tell the sponsors like, hey, I'm just gonna start doing this for fun. Like, I don't think I can support, like y'all aren't gonna want to support the level of effort I'm gonna put into this. And it was actually Mark Roth. I think Mark Roth made a post about it. Then Bill Cochran sent me a message and said, hey, we're gonna go try this. Do you want to come? Because he knew I did CrossFit. So I met them up, in Mississippi. I actually had done one of the open workouts Friday night, and got in my truck after doing that and drove to Mississippi from Texas. Slept outside of the gate. Woke up, shot the match. And Dylan Easley, actually, he shot the match too. He sent me a message and he was like, "Hey dude, if we're gonna show up, like, let's do elite." Like,
That
he
sounds
kind
like
of
Dylan.
he kind of called me out on it, and I was like, because I had signed up for intermediate, and I was like, "Look, dude, like, I'm reading the website right now, and it basically says if you're not like some special forces god, you have no business in anything but elite." It's like, I'm not. And anyway, Dylan being Dylan taught me into it, and we did elite, and so I ended up winning that match. Then they came to Texas, Reveille Peak, like the next month, and I, just so happened they were there, and that's like 15-20 minutes from my house. So I competed there and I won there, and I just kind of started doing well in them, and I got to know the owner through doing well at the matches, and I ended up winning 2 of the championships. And then after the second one, the owner had started talking to me. Great guy, awesome career in the military. He was not prepared for the business that it was going to turn into. So I had started helping him about 2.5 or 3 months before, just with like, this is how you do a profit and loss. This is how you do for like cash flow forecasting. This is how you do this. This is how this is how you use Excel. Hey, you have to charge sales tax for these things, and you have to set up sales tax accounts in different states. And if you're selling over a certain amount of, I think it's like a lot of states have transaction numbers. So if you have over like 150 transactions in a state, you have to pay sales tax there. And and he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Look, dude, like, this is one of those things that it doesn't get you now, but your phone rings in 7 years, and that's why you go out of business." I was like, "So you have to be on top of it right now." And it kind of started stressing him out a little bit. And business wasn't so much a business mindset, is a much different mindset than somebody would think. It's very clinical, and like, you can't really have emotions, and you have to look at numbers and make decisions on numbers and stuff like that. And he had not saying he has to be heartless, but he had like a really big heart, and he made decisions with his heart instead of what was going to allow the business to continue for years afterwards. So anyway, I was helping him. I was teaching him how to do taxes, how to turn in sales tax, how to do all the spreadsheets and stuff. And one day he called me and he was like, "Hey man, I don't want to do this, so I want to sell it to you." And I was like, "Well, think about it for a while. Talk to some other people. I don't want to be the only one that you're talking to, so that way you're getting a good deal." So he talked to some other people. I made him an offer. Those other people made him an offer, and then he ultimately picked me. And the reason why is because he knew I was going to keep it very close to what he had. I wasn't going to turn it into something else. And some of the other people that were involved were, had envisions of turning it into something it shouldn't be. And anyway, so I ended up buying it from him, and that I took over January of 2021 because I told him that I wanted to compete in one more championship without owning it before I bought it and I was in control of it. And I was like, it's not real fair to me to have trained for as hard as I have and for as long as I have to get the rug pulled out from me a month before the championship because you don't want to own it anymore. And so we did the transfer after that. And then kind of without saying it, we're all aware of some organizations where like people in the leadership roles have competed and it didn't exactly turn out cool. In the community, 3-gun community that I come from, that's very prevalent. And it's a huge black eye if you're competing and you own it and stuff like that. And so I was 100% prepared to step out and never compete again. Like I was already like, I made an announcement that I was done. I'm not going to compete anymore. Well, the guys that have been competing against me for several years are like, you're not done. You're going to keep competing because you're going to keep competing till one of us beats you. And so I told him I'd give him one more year. So I competed for one more year, which was this last year. And now I just own it. I'll compete, but I'll just nuke my score right before the scores are final. And there is a huge benefit. You get very calloused. Like I didn't compete at all during the year. You have to either finish in the top 5 of the championship to qualify for the next year's championship, or finish in the top 5 of a regular regional to go to the championship. And so I had qualified by the previous year's championship. So I didn't compete for a whole year. And I can tell you, it is not healthy for an owner of a shooting organization to not compete, because you lose perspective very quickly of what is important to shooters if you're not a shooter. If that may not make any sense, but
No, that makes so much sense.
That makes
because
perfect sense.
so
yes,
just stepping back in, and I take that back. I did compete once, but it was a partner match. Every year we have a partner match. This year we're having 2, and I competed in the partner match, and that's really when it opened my eyes to like, man, I got kind of calloused on a couple of things that it hasn't reared its head yet, but it's very important for the owner, like the ownership, management, board, whatever it is that's controlling a shooting organization. They need to be competing, whether they're competing and just like DQing their score before their final, that's cool. But they need to be in a squad with everybody else and shooting like everybody else, just to make sure that you sometimes you lose sight of what the other side of the glass looks like. And whenever you go and you compete, you're like, yeah, I forgot how important these little things are to the people that are competing. So it's super important to be involved.
and the shooters see that you're involved. Like you care if you're
Right.
competing.
There was, like I said, I tore my hamstring, so I think I finished like 8th this year, but like it ends a lot of arguments, and it ends a lot of if I weighed 350 pounds and couldn't shoot, I wouldn't be able to have a logical argument with somebody that was competing in elite, complaining about something that's going on in elite, right?
Right.
But since I am a top competitor in elite, and that you're having a discussion with somebody that can compete at the same level that you can, and so there's validity both ways, right? So you're from one side, you're talking from somebody that's just a competitor, like a competitor and a top level athlete, and on the other side, they're getting to see your perspective as an owner, but they also know that you're a high level athlete. So there's definitely a level of respect that you get back for being part of the community and competing at a higher level.
Yeah.
We got a few lives, don't we?
Yes.
Hit a couple of those, Corey.
So William wants to know where a local match is to Houston.
Houston. So we have the range that,
or is there just a site he could find?
So Houston actually has a very high population of tactical games athletes. There's a guy named Glenn Plastic that he runs. It's not affiliated with what we're doing, but he's a good dude, and he runs a practice at he's got like a personal range, and then Bill Cochran is on there, and he shoots at a different range. But if there's a Facebook group called Tactical Games Athletes, and if you join that group and ask that question, answer the freaking questions to get into the group.
As a group moderator, I know exactly what you mean.
If you don't answer those questions, you are not getting in.
You have to answer honestly. Can I say I'm buff and in shape and ready?
Yeah. But go into that group and ask that question, and those guys will speak up. But I know that I think there's 2 groups of people that put on, they're training regularly with groups of people down there.
Okay.
And then the next event that's close, like a regional event that's close, is the range that me, Aaron, and Steve own on Texas Shooting Academy, which is like 30 minutes north of Austin, is the next match that's close. It's coming up in a couple of months.
Okay. Sean Nelson wants to know how long the elites are going to hold out on red dots.
Man, Sean knows that we put out a vote. So we went ahead and just went across the board, and a lot of people had questions why we didn't have every division vote on whether they wanted dots or not. And the reason why is because it would have been an admin nightmare to explain who gets to shoot dots and who doesn't.
Yeah.
So we made the move to make all divisions accept red dots on pistols, except for elite. Elite, we left it to a vote to all of the people that were at the championship. So Nick Thayer, who is also a competitor and the president of the tactical games, I think it was before our second stage, got up in front of everybody and said, this is going to be a vote for red dots on pistols. If you want them, raise your hand. And like 3 people out of like 40 raised their hand. So we stayed with the iron sights, and that's how that went. So
cool.
I try not, this is not I tell people all the time, it's not a dictatorship. Sometimes I have to make the call on stuff, but we really want the competition to be what the athletes want it to be. So that's the reason why we do put a lot of stuff out to the community to figure out what they want instead of just making rules like autonomously. So, but I think next year, I think we're going to have the vote again. I'm not just going to change the rule, but I think, to answer his question, I think that people will want to switch over next year in elite.
Fair.
Greg?
All right. So you guys have a very different approach to social media compared to other shooting organizations, especially video. What started that, and how do you think it's helped the tactical games grow so quickly?
Nick Thayer started it. I thought of it. Corey knows this by being around me. I'm a pretty blunt and honest person, which gets me in trouble sometimes because I don't take people's feelings into account sometimes.
I like it. It's fine.
Yeah. No, like you've seen me be blunt to people probably. I thought it was a terrible idea. I thought it was a waste of money. Video, Sean Nelson is on here, so he knows how expensive it is because I write him checks quite a bit. But video is very expensive, and I did not see the value in it at first. Nick talked me into it. We did it. Then I saw the value of it, and I realized how wrong I was. Definitely worth it. It's still very expensive, so we have to be careful with how much we use it. And we have to make sure that we are getting as much as we can out of the footage that we're getting, because it's very expensive to do. And but you know, I definitely, and I'm not taking the only credit that I can take for it is that I realized I was wrong, and we course corrected, and we started doing it as much as we could. It was 100% Nick Thayer's idea to do this as much as we were. Now you can see there's been a couple of other people, a couple of different organizations. Like, since we started doing that, a lot of other organizations have put this as a priority and have started changing what they're doing. And you can see other people's social media, like go to USPSA, their national last year. They hired Froelich and Sean to go down there, and then another guy that does some video for us, or used to do some video for us. And they did that, and it's definitely, it's picking up. The problem with the action shooting and PRS is that you're constantly behind somebody. like it's the same shot of the person's back as they're running through a stage or whatever, right?
Yeah.
With what we're doing, half of what we're doing doesn't involve shooting, so you can get in front of people and like
Right.
have cool video of people's faces doing things, and it's not just like a guy that is running in front of a camera shooting targets that you can't see. So we definitely have a leg up on the shooting industry because we are doing so much stuff that doesn't involve shooting. We can get a whole lot of really cool content. The other part, we can get a lot of really cool content that doesn't have people's guns in their hands, so our videos don't get picked up by
yeah.
The Nazis.
Yeah. So what there is certainly a I for some reason the word's leaving me, but whenever you post a video and there's a gun visible for however, it doesn't matter how long it is, there's an algorithm that picks up that gun was there, and it trashes the numbers on that video. If you put up a video and you're videoing it from the correct sides and somebody doesn't have a rifle on them and the pistol is on the opposite side of where you're videoing, and you can make sure that the guns aren't visible in the video, you're reaching a huge audience. And I can see, some people are like, well, screw this system, this is 2A, all that. Well, you also want to reach as big of an audience as you can to bring them in, right? So if you're constantly like just trying to buck the system and let's put these guns in front of everybody, like you're not going to be able to reach as many people and bring them into the industry and the competition and the sport and stuff. So, but that's one of the reasons why we're so successful with the media is the nature of what we're doing, how we can get the videos, and then what we do with the videos when we get them.
I think in doing that, y'all have been successful this year. I think a big announcement that you had was Under Armour, I think, is on board, which is pretty huge for it to be, a shooting competition, and you've got mainstream sponsors. That's really awesome. How did that work out?
So Nick handles all the sponsorships, and one day he sent me a text message and he was like, hey man, Under Armour just sent the social media, like, so Ro runs our social media and several other things. He's kind of in charge of all the video, photography, social media stuff. He's like, hey, Ro said that Under Armour sent us a message and they want to work with us next year. And I was like, what's Under Armour? And he was like, Under Armour. It just didn't register that a global brand, like the global brand Under Armour. I thought it was like some knockoff, something else in the shooting space that named themselves Under Armour. So they reached out to us. They were interested in working with us. So they have a tactical line that it's existed for a while. A lot of people don't realize how much tactical clothing they actually do. So they have a whole tactical line of clothing, and it's called MADE is the acronym that it goes under. And they were focusing really hard on relaunching that brand. So they wanted to partner with us on relaunching that brand, become the title sponsor, and we have plans to be partners for several years in the future. So great people to work with. They are super excited about it. There's a lot of really good people in the shooting industry. There's a lot of really slow emails that come back in the shooting industry, and to say it nicely, like without making somebody mad, but in the Under Armour guys, it's instant responses, monthly or bi-weekly meetings. They're on time for their meetings. They're actually there for the meetings. They set marketing plans. We stick to the marketing plans. We have ideas that actually come to fruition quickly instead of like an idea that never materializes. We come up with an idea and they do it fast. And obviously they have budget to do that. But we come up with an idea. They show us like when we were at SHOT Show, they showed us pants, and I was like, hey man, these are cool pants. Here's a list of things that are wrong with these pants. And they weren't upset about it. They literally took out a piece of paper and started writing down everything that they needed to change about the pants. And just from shooting, from doing other stuff, like they thought that they had this pocket that could hold a pistol mag. I was like, man, that's a great idea. Like some manufacturers or clothing brands already have that, but you have it located underneath where your pistol holster sits. So how am I going to get my pistol magazine out of a, so immediately, like, where does it need to be? And like, I pointed exactly, like, there needs to be a slit in the pants right here, and that's where it needs to go. And they're like, cool, yeah, we're 100%, we're doing that. And then Nick started talking about like, hey, y'all don't have any like wide toe box, zero drop shoes. That's what a lot of people that are running like endurance trail races and stuff are doing. And cool, send us some of the shoes that y'all like, and we're 100%, we're going to do it. And so it's like, you come up with like a criticism, and they're like, cool, what do we need to do it? And it's like, cool, we're changing it. So, and anyway, so they're coming up with the shoes and pants and sending us stuff and getting comments on it. And they move fast, they act fast. And one of the other differences that they do that a lot of the companies in the 2A industry is they are using us in a way that they should be using us. Like they're a marketing arm of their company now. And actually, it's not like they're like, oh yeah, cool, I'll sponsor you, and then they disappear as a company for a year, and then they come back at that end of that year and they're like, okay, you checked all the boxes, so we'll sponsor you again. They're actually very active in what we're doing, and bi-weekly updates. They have ideas. We have had some sponsors in the past that have come in and tried to be a little heavy-handed and like tell us what to do with programming and stuff. And obviously that's not going to fly with me. So they just like, man, we love what you're doing. We want to be a part of it, and we're glad to be working with them for sure.
That's unreal to have. That's so cool.
Yeah. And it's a huge, like the responsibility that we have. And I made sure, Nick's a very smart guy. He comes from the defense industry, and I explained to him the gravity of a global company sponsoring a shooting sport, and how we can't screw this up, because there is a lot of other people, a lot of eyeballs on this, and we have to make sure that we make the most of this for them, and that we set a good example so that it opens doors for other shooting sports as well. There is, other global brands that were stopping by other booths at SHOT Show asking how that they can get their products into the athletes' hands, stuff like that, that brands that you would never think would be interested in guns, were actually at SHOT Show. So
that's always awesome, bringing non-endemic sponsors into the shooting sports one way or the other. That always shows that you got a really solid program going on. So we're about at the midpoint of the show. Remember, if you're watching us live on Facebook, ask any questions you may have in the comment section of this video. We'll ask them live on air. Other ways to catch us, you can always check back on the Shooter's Mindset Facebook page. The videos all stay up forever. We usually upload to all the podcast apps the night after the show. And then finally, everything eventually ends up on the Shooter's Mindset YouTube page. So that's a great place to look up past episodes. While we're here on sponsors, we talked about some of the relationships you have with your sponsors, which is really cool, being able to it always frustrates me when you get that whole, like, yes, you've checked all the boxes, here's your, free box of hats or whatever. So it's really cool that you're able to work with them on product development, stuff like that. I've had a few sponsors like that myself, where it's just like, you kind of feel like you're working together as a team instead of like just some random number. They were told they sponsor this many matches, this many shooters, whatever, and here's your box of swag. Everyone claims it's hard to return on sponsoring matches. How do you think shooting organizations can get sponsors a better return?
So one of the things that we do, and like, I'm obviously not going to pull back the veil on everything that I do. So
I was ready to take notes, dude. Come on. I'm already doing the videos like you're doing.
Do what?
I'm already doing the videos like you're doing.
Yeah, I know. Not gonna pull back the veil on everything that we're doing, but I will tell you one of the things that we do is we have gear check forms, say electronic gear check forms that go out before the match. One, we have a rule that once the configuration that you start the match with is a configuration you have to keep throughout the entire match, right? So we have gear check forms to make sure that if you check in a 1 to 10 vortex scope and somebody says, hey man, I got to change the scope, we can go back and we can look at the paperwork and see that no, he signed in with a 1 to 10. And that's an electronic gear check form that we have that every athlete has to complete before they show up for check-in. One of the functions that allows us to do, and I mean, we have everything on there. What kind of socks, shoes, pants, shirt. And not to say you can't change your clothes. You can definitely change your clothes. We just want to know. It's data collection, right? So when a sponsor, the hardest thing to do is not to sell things for sponsors. The hardest thing to do is for a sponsor to know where that sell originated and why that person bought it, right? So like shooter's mindset, if y'all have a sponsor and I see like on the back of your wall like Hunter's HD gold glasses, if I went on their website and bought them because I saw that poster on your wall, they would have no idea that I bought them because I saw them in the background, right? Or like a Cabela safe, right? I see the safe. If I go buy a Cabela safe, they're not going to know I bought it because I saw it in the background in your video. What we do is we track trends, right? So we'll have a rifle sponsor come in. We have all of our historical data and graphs and spreadsheets. Graphs is really the pie charts is really the easiest way to visually show what we're doing. And let's say it's like ABC Rifle Company. That might be an actual rifle company. I don't know. If it is, it's a mistake. But if it's ABC Rifle Company, they come in, we can show them like, hey, in the past 18 months, 3 people have shown up with ABC Rifle, right? Then we can show at the end of that year, we can show, hey, y'all started advertising with us 18 months prior to our relationship. 3 people had that gun. Now 37 people have that gun that showed up with it. So you can see that we sold 37 rifles for you and we're trending in the right direction. It hasn't plateaued yet. So we feel like there's still legs in this relationship and we can still do good things for you. Sometimes, and candidly, I mean, there's one sponsor and I respect the guy a lot, and he works for a rifle company, and he came in, they were sponsoring one of the top female athletes, and called him at the end of the year. I was like, hey man, so there was one rifle of y'all's brand that was used prior to your relationship with us. There was one rifle being used after a year. Like I'm almost not even gonna let you sponsor me again. Like I don't know what the hang up is between us and this brand, but like we're not performing here. And honestly, they were just much more interested in the content so that they could use our content in a commercial way. So they ended up continuing to sponsor, and then actually recently more of their rifles started showing up at our matches. But like a very successful and kind of a par for the course relationship is what we had with Staccato, where I was sponsored from STI before it was Staccato, and then Staccato after it became Staccato. Yeah. The first time I competed, there was 2 Staccatos and like 4 2011s. Now the average match has like 57 Staccatos. It's almost outpacing Glock at our matches, right? So that's a pretty easy conversation you can have with a sponsor when you go back to them and you're like, hey, so we sold $1.4 million worth of pistols for you this year. And they're like, do you want to sponsor us again? And they're like, same thing with Vortex.
Yeah.
Vortex, there was maybe like 3 or 4 Vortex products at the first tactical games that I went to that I noticed, that I saw. And the other thing that we have is a huge bank of photos that have been taken of every competitor since the first thing. So we could go back and recreate data that we needed, right? So you could go look at the individual shooters, look at all their gear, and essentially do a gear form for them. So, we were able to go back and recreate those gear forms based off of photos of the competitors. And I think there was like 4 or 5 Vortex scopes. Now it's like 97% of the people are using Vortex scopes. The main thing is the amount of work that it takes to do that is and it's like, being bluntly honest, most match directors are not willing to put the work in to do that kind of stuff, to show the value of what their sponsorship is doing. And that's why their sponsorships aren't having legs.
That's a huge amount of work, especially going back and recreating photos from someone that knows how to do that. That's insane.
Yeah. So it's worth it though. I mean, if you want,
it's definitely worth it.
I can tell you that there's brands out there that will swear to you that they do not offer monetary sponsorships, that they absolutely offer monetary.
Yeah.
You just have to approach it in the correct way. You have to show your value, and you have to give them something that is tangible at the end of the relationship. And that's tangible, can be data, tangible can be a lot of things. So, and it's just as valuable for a brand if they come in and they're very focused on the tactical space, just tactical in general, right? And they're putting a ton of marketing dollars, not just with us, but with a plethora of tactical brands, maybe influencers, different things. And we come back to them like, hey man, I don't know what it is about your brand, but you're not selling anything. They can go back and they can look at their company as a whole and wonder and figure out why they're not selling to that community. Or they can just figure out like, hey, for whatever, we don't have the recipe right. So we need to step back and save our money right now and maybe put this money into more product development or in figuring out why people aren't doing this. So it can save them a lot of money by realizing maybe they aren't doing things correct for, the part of the industry that they're getting into.
Yeah, that makes sense. So one of the other things that you guys do that's very different and refreshing is you do a lot of Q&As. Like your story, once a week, you're doing a Q&A, and it's kind of different than like USPSA or other organizations. It almost seems like you're open to it and it's beneficial for you. Like, why do you do that? And like, how did it start?
So, Corey, that I was a shooter before. So I always tell people like
long time ago, before you had gray hair.
Yeah. So, I always tell people that I'm a shooter first, and always, right? And I've been a business owner since I was 20, so that just kind of comes naturally to me. But when it comes to terms of tactical games and like tactical 2-gun that we just started or sniper challenge that we have going on, it's like I'm a shooter first, and that's the perspective that I see it from. And what really pissed me off as a shooter was that the amount of time and effort I was putting into a sport to get good at a sport. And I felt like I couldn't even talk to the leadership, right? Yeah. You would think that at some point you've reached a level of either participation or B, a skill level to where you could maybe have a conversation with somebody that was running the show and they would take your input on stuff. And that never happened. 3-Gun Nation, it's not like I could go sit down with them and say, hey guys, I think that, I really like your match. You can't, it was like there was a wall up between the shooters and the organization. And I hated that. So that's one of the reasons why we make sure that we're shooting with the people. That's one of the reasons why I do the question and answer. I'm at the matches. A lot of the times, who even owned 3-Gun Nation? I don't know.
I remember.
I know who was. I know who was there. I know who was there, but the person that was there didn't own it. There's another guy that owned it. And there's sometimes who's on the board of USPSA. You might know. I don't know. And I own a gun range. We have monthly USPSA matches at my gun range, and I have no idea who's in leadership at USPSA. And it's frustrating. You should be able to send a message to their Instagram, or at least know minimum who's in charge over there. Who could I, and
I'll send you your area director's email. Don't worry.
Yeah. So And the other thing is like, don't hit me with that, the leadership that says they don't have time, right? Like, I think USPSA, last time I looked, has like 40,000 followers, something like that. IDPA has like 15,000 followers, and we have 110, right?
Yeah.
And we have time to answer questions. They send us questions in, and a lot of times people may not realize, like, it's Nick, the president of the tactical games, is answering your question when you send it in, or it might be Ro. Sometimes we have a text message group, and sometimes Ro gets a question. He's like, dude, I have no idea. Like, y'all need to answer this question. And we'll either log in and answer it, or we'll send him back the answer to the question, and he'll respond. And then, like, I don't hide that I'm the owner, and people send me messages to my Instagram all the time. I sit down once or twice a day and go through all of my messages. And it's part of owning a business. And if you don't want to do it, you need to do something else. It's like, it's frustrating to me. And like, I'm more focused in growing the sport than I am making money, but like, I'm not making them the amount of money that the people that are sitting like at the top of the USPSA are making. And I have time. And I also own 3 other businesses. So I own 3 other businesses. I have 2 kids. I own a CrossFit gym that I coach at, and I still have time to answer your questions. Nobody else has an excuse not to answer a fucking sorry. Nobody, I'm pretty pissed off. Like, it pisses me off. Nobody
the
has.
shooters are the customers. I mean, any business, if there was any other business that just ignored, people that were calling in with issues or whatever, you're never going to make it. And the shooters are customers. And I don't think that everyone always remembers that.
Yeah. If you'd be surprised how shocked people are if they send you a message and you actually respond to them. They're like, holy crap, I can't believe that you just answered my question. It's like, yeah, man, like, you asked me a question, so I answered it for you. But anyway, that's there's coming at it from a shooter's perspective, and that's why I think also when you're out there competing, you're with the people, you're with your customers. You don't get to hide behind some screen. Like, if you're not answering people's questions and you're not doing things right, and you show up and you compete at a match next to somebody, like, there's going to be an awkward conversation at some point during the day, right? And that's why you also need to be out in your community and participating. So
so you're not shy about answering any question, and sometimes the questions get a little playful. How do you keep those fun? Like, when I send you interesting questions, or maybe Sean Nelson asks an interesting question.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I don't care. I'll answer. The main thing is that when I get on there, I am 100% committed. I answer every question. There's some questions that I won't answer, but those are either like inappropriate questions. Like, I'm Southern Baptist, so I'm not going to answer some of those questions. But the other questions I won't answer is like business sensitive information, like people constantly asking me where we're going to have events. There's a reason why I don't answer those questions, and just like possibly, maybe, stuff like that. One of them,
the contract's still out.
One of them, to be 100% candid with you, is, well, there's two main reasons. One being, we have to book our own Airbnbs, and we have to book like.
So you want to get them booked before it gets released.
Right. So like, as a match, we save a ton of money every year. Like, if we're traveling to 12 different matches, we save a ton of money by being able to book our stuff before we announce our events, because the first thing that happens is all the Airbnbs within an hour that are reasonably priced get bought up. So we go in, we book where we're going to stay. We make sure the porta pots are done, the contract for the range is signed, the range is paid, all those other things, and then we release it out. The other reason is we have competitors in the space, and they are paying attention to what we're doing, and they will try and bookend our competition with their competitions to try and, get people to come to their competitions. So we have to watch out for that stuff. So anyway, being
So
business tactics.
I'm still laughing about that. We got to book our Airbnbs first. But it's true. You've got the guy or girl that's watching, and they're saying, this looks like a lot of fun. How do we get them from watching your videos and watching this podcast to actually doing it?
So Tactical Games University, we offer that is so that we have the university, which is taught by the top competitors. That is a really good way. If you go and you show up to a university, you're being taught by somebody who has put a ton of time and resources into learning the game, and makes your first competition super easy. A lot of times it's just the barrier. Like, I can't tell you how long I looked at shooting matches before I actually showed up to one. And it was just like, I was just nervous about showing up to my first shooting match, right? So that's a good way to break the ice in a very low stress environment. The other thing that we're doing is making sure that we are making sure that we're growing our tactical games, like the training day. Make sure that we are growing that as fast as we can, because the faster that grows, that is a super low barrier to entry. You can just show up, even if you don't have a rifle and you just have a pistol, you can show up and you can kind of learn how it's going and stuff. But a low barrier to entry way. And that's one of the other reasons why we went from a skirmish, which is more of a match setting, to a training day, which is just a training format. Is people are much more likely to come if it's just like, hey, everybody's going to be there training for this stuff. It's not a competition and there's not a score, and I don't have to go get last place. I can just go and figure out what it's about first, type thing. So that's really what we're focused on, to getting those people like, that looks fun, to showing up, is providing the low barrier to entry options for them to get involved.
So where would somebody go to find info on those training days near them? Is there like a master list someplace?
Yeah, on our website, there's a list of where they all are right now. We're trying to grow it as fast as we can. But then we also have a couple of posts which get lost, which we're doing better on. I looked at our social media about 4 or 5 months ago, and I was like, man, you would literally have to click all of these different posts and like read the information to figure out like what it just super cool picture doesn't tell me what the post is about. So we're getting better at like putting text over the photo that still looks good to like cue you in on what the meat of the post is about. So there's a couple out there that have, and then we also have ttg.training is our other Instagram page, and that is completely focused on the training aspect of it, which is a better place to go if you're trying to get started.
I will say your website that I'm on now, and that's why I'm looking over, is really easy to get through. Like, I found it in like 5 seconds.
Yeah, we the amount of money and iterations we've gone through on that website. I think it's our budget for the website. I would say not our budget. What we spend on that website monthly is probably what most organizations paid for their website the first time they got it.
Yeah.
15 years ago. So, but it helps to be able to navigate things really fast and like have the flow make sense and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So did we say what the actual website was? I know we've talked about it.
thetacticalgames.com.
thetacticalgames.com, and the Facebook page is also The Tactical Games.
Yeah, so the Facebook page, which is just like, I think it's linked to our Instagram, so it's just like automatically whatever's on our Instagram pushes over there. But the page that you're actually going to learn a lot of stuff about is so it's just Tactical Games Athletes. And like I said, answer the questions. If you don't answer the questions, you ain't getting in. So I think one of them is like, do you plan on competing? Another one is, have you competed? If you have, where? We're looking for coherent answers. So like, even if
Okay.
you haven't competed and you're maybe not even planning on it, if you're putting like coherent answers in there, we're going to let you in.
So you're not a bot
Gotcha.
and you're not a Nigerian prince.
Yes, exactly.
So I
Yeah.
should have put, hello, sirs. I wish the page.
Yeah. So if you put like use good grammar, you can pretty much say whatever you want to say and you're getting that. So
Damn, I'm never getting on this page.
That is hilarious. And now, like, I know for different shooting genres, there's different calendars. Like for a while, NRL was like almost like a fiscal year that ended middle of the year, and PRS ends like December-ish. What is y'all's year like? You have a final at the end, but if somebody is like, hey, I really want to try and do this, like when is that final that they need to be ready for?
So the championship is the first weekend in November, which unfortunately coincides with the opening day of deer season in Texas.
Oh,
But I sent a message out the other day. I was like, look, guys, we're pushing it back a week because this guy is going to be deer hunting that weekend.
my man.
Yeah. So anyway, we're probably going to be pushing that back a week, but that's when that is. However, our match schedule for next year, we've already started working on some of the locations. It takes much longer than you would think to book a location, sign a contract, do all that other stuff. Typically by about June, we have 90% of our schedule figured out for the next year. And we start releasing it around August, September for the next year.
Awesome. So if somebody wanted to, hey, I want to jump into this and be competitive and maybe make it at nationals, they've got plenty of time to qualify and be able to get in if they wanted to.
Oh yeah. I mean, our season hasn't even started yet. Our first event's in like 2 weeks. So yes.
That's awesome.
That's weird because your shirt says no off season. How has the season not started?
So no off season is a holdover from the Tim Burke days. There is in fitness, there's absolutely an off season, and if you're not doing that, you will never make it to the elite level of any fitness endeavor if you're not taking an off season for sure. So what we say is you always stay ready, but you definitely have to take your off season. So it's typically after a national championship, I would take a month off. And like, if I had the option to take the stairs or the elevator, I'm taking the elevator. Like I didn't do anything. I would gain about 20 pounds. Like when I was really training to win, it's been about a year now, but when I was really training to win, I would have to eat between like 3,800 and 4,200 calories a day. And it's really hard to turn that off, but it's really hard. It's really easy to stop working out. It's really hard to stop eating. So in about 30 days, I'd gain about 20 pounds, 25 pounds, and spend the next 2 months working that back off and getting back into shape. So,
are there any more lives?
Too spicy.
Too spicy.
Too spicy.
All right. Well, then you can just go read the comments if you want. We won't take them down. We don't delete comments, believe it or not, usually, unless they're pretty egregious. I think in one of our most recent shows, someone felt like things got deleted, and we don't delete comments. So unless you're completely,
hey, I delete comments sometimes. I don't care.
if it's vulgar or really bad, we might, but we don't generally delete comments. So anyway. Well, I think then that we can wrap this up. So we usually start with some shout outs to whoever you want to shout out to. So Corey, we'll let you go first.
Man, I want to shout out Jared for elevating the shooting sports. I think what you're doing and like the original question that you answered when I Instagram messaged you about it, I wish more organizations would do that. So I'm going to leave it at that for tonight.
Appreciate it.
Greg, what you got?
We got GSL Suppressors, Shooters and Sharpshooters of Augusta. PDC custom for this beautiful lime green rifle chassis you see back here. Hunter's HD Gold, like we talked about before. I'm super blind and I can see stuff with them. And then Fix It Sticks and Vortex, because I like taking stuff apart and sometimes I have to clean them.
Oh gosh, sometimes. Jared, you got any shout outs?
Maybe Corey. Corey, so I don't know, y'all probably shot with Corey, but the last time I shot with Corey was probably the easiest resetting deal I've ever done. Have y'all ever shot with his resetting schedule?
Oh yeah.
Are you a
I don't
resetting?
do that as much anymore, dude. I don't sprint down 50 yards to reset the star.
So he also sets a schedule. So like the two people after, I forgot how it was, but basically 2 people are resetting every time and everybody else gets to rest. And that was the
that's
most
beautiful.
organized match I've ever shot. And then it sounds hokey because they are a title sponsor and stuff, and I don't want people to think it's that, but like Under Armour and the chance that they're taking on the shooting sports and coming into the shooting sports, knowing obviously they're going to take some heat for it. Like if you have the opportunity and you're at an academy and you're looking at 2 different brands, pick up the Under Armour brand. Like we don't get anything from that. Just we have to support that. We have to show, that will that ever register on their radar? Probably not. They're like a $5 billion, or not like, they are a $5 billion company. However, their tactical line is a smaller portion of that. So if they start seeing that their tactical clothing is moving a lot faster, you're going to see, like I said, there was a couple of brands that are bigger than Under Armour that were asking questions at SHOT Show and that historically have not been 2A friendly brands. And the only reason why they're there, the only reason why they're asking the question is because Under Armour got us into that spotlight. So we really need to make sure, just like you take care of any sponsors, we really need to make sure that we're taking care of sponsors. And if you have an option between 2 pairs of socks, pick up the Under Armour socks. Do that for me.
Yes.
I actually really like my Under Armour socks, not gonna lie.
Dude, one thing that I have to say about socks, I just reached the level of maturity where like I'll wear matching socks, and then now they have right and left foot socks. And it's like, so now you're expected to wear matching socks and you have to get a right and a left figured out too. But anyway,
They do fit better.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Nobody has time for that, Jared.
Yeah, I wear like 2 left socks on.
I like the right left socks. They fit snugger on your toes and they feel better. But well, for my shout outs, I just want to shout you out for coming on and taking your Tuesday night to spend with us. We really appreciate you coming and talking to us and being so open. And like Corey said, I appreciate what you're doing for the shooting sports and being so open to the shooters and responsive to questions is really huge. So appreciate you doing that. And shout out the Tactical Games. Everybody go check it out. Go shoot a match, have some fun. You don't have to be the CrossFit king of the world to do it. You can go and shoot one of the different divisions and just have some fun. So absolutely. I would definitely say go and check them out. And with that, it'll be a wrap for episode 395, and we will see y'all next time.